Hey, welcome to the Lisa Mitchell Show, the show where I help millennial women crack the code in business and in life. And I can only do that because of the amazing experts that I'm able to bring into the conversation with me. And today I am excited to introduce you all to Julie Kratz. Julie, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we get to sit side by side today. And disclaimer for anybody who's watching this instead of just listening to it, we have been poured on multiple times today. It is a rainy day here in Indianapolis. So thus what you're seeing right here, for those of you listening, you're missing out on something special. And you might want to pop over to the Woodage Network and see what you're missing on the Lisa Mitchell Show today. So anyways, we are going to get started and get into the conversation. And Julie, I'm going to let you kind of tell the audience and the listeners what you specialize in, what you're passionate about, what lights you up, and what we're going to talk about today.
Well, I have, ever since I was a little girl, I have been super passionate about women's rights and helping women be successful. And so, well, it's threaded throughout my career. I spent quite a bit of time in corporate America, trying on a lot of different jobs and functional areas and industries. And I call them a lot of pivot points that I've experienced throughout my career that led me to start my own speaking business focused on women leaders. What I'm super jazzed about and excited about, especially with your millennial women audience, is how do we engage what I call allies in our career, and especially men. So what we found in our research is that a lot of successful women, the few women that do make it to the C-suite, what they told us is that they got there a lot of times through the support of men. Okay? And I think sometimes as women, we think we have to have a woman mentor, we have to have a woman sponsoring us, we have to be a part of this women's leadership group. Those things are awesome. But after I was in about the 20th room of all women trying to solve a woman's problem, which is not a woman's problem, by the way, I used air quotes in the video here, but it's not women helping each other that's going to get us there. That's a big part of it, right? But where we need to look forward and kind of pivot forward as women is looking alongside men, and how can they support us as allies? How can they be advocates, champions, mentors, sponsors, whatever role we need them to play in our career? And how do we, as women, engage and leverage that advocacy?
Yeah, I love that you've made that the mission and the focus of your work, and both on both angles, the exploring the pivot points and how you move throughout your career. I think is it's important to recognize the steps and the changes, and to know that that's all part of the process, and it's okay to adjust as you go. And that now with your work around male allies is like, how do you build that network of support? How do you really leverage who's around you, who's already in the spaces and the places where you want to be or where you're tracking, and figuring out who is a partner for me? How does this happen? And I think there's, I'd love to get your thoughts on kind of the assumption or maybe the fear that some women have that, oh, well, if I have to have, and again, quotes around half, right? If I have to have a male ally to elevate me or to clear the path for me, am I really achieving this on my own? What do you have to say to people who maybe challenge you back on, well, what do you need a male ally for?
That's probably one of the biggest pushbacks I get from women. It's like, okay, great. Now another conversation I need to involve men in, right? And I think that's why we created these insular women's groups, is because we wanted a safe place to have a dialogue amongst women. There is a time and a place for that. I'm all about empowering women and women getting together. What I'm advocating for is, let's consider how to get men involved in the conversation. Yeah. So the data shows us that men are primary decision makers inside organizations. 95% of CEOs, 85% of the C-suite, almost 80% of the boards are made up of men, primarily white men. Yeah. And I love white men. That there's nothing wrong with white men. But studies show that diverse thought, diverse experiences bring better ideas, bring better decisions, and most importantly, better business results. Yeah. So as women, I think we need to educate men on that. Like, hey, my diverse perspective, and chances are it's probably aligned with our consumer base as well. Right. When I bring my idea into the organization, I'm allowed to be heard and advocated for. Wow, the organization starts to rise as well. It's not a selfish thing as women, but I think to answer your question about why do we need allies, it's because they are the decision makers. Like it or not, we're not going to change things on our own. We got to get the decision makers involved.
Right. And it's not a matter of asking permission, I think, which is where some women maybe feel a little bit of discomfort around this idea of a male ally. Is like, oh, I need a keeper or guardian, or I need to ask permission to be in these conversations, and that's not it at all, right? No. Can you kind of unpack the process of figuring out, who in my network would be a great male ally for me?
Yeah. So we talk about allies, and the reason the word allies, this is the second big challenge I get, is why ally? Why not mentor or sponsor? Why don't we call out these men as different words, or maybe nothing at all, is what our research showed. Well, it is important because not every male is an ally, so we need to have a word to describe it. But we also do need to educate men, teach them how we want to be treated. So the word ally is side by side. It's not a power play. It's not treat me like a work daughter. I've heard that one before. This is somebody that can serve as a mentor, a sponsor, a teacher, an advocate, a champion. And so to your point about knowing how to fit a male ally into your career, think about where you're at and where you want to go, right? A great ally might serve as a mentor, as somebody that's doing what you want to do 3 years from now. Right. So find the person that's doing it, male or female, and engage them in your career and ask them to be your mentor. And women struggle with this. We really struggle with asking somebody to be our mentor because it feels selfless, or selfish rather. Well, actually turn it this way, reposition it in your mind, is actually the research shows that mentors benefit more than the mentee, right?
Interesting, really.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah. Why is that? What does the research point to as the biggest benefit?
It's just giving that perspective of somebody. Chances are younger than you, that thinks different than you do.
Right.
It widens your thinking. And so you, in turn, develop more of a teaching skill set. You're open to new ideas more often, so at least innovation.
Yeah.
So the benefits of being a mentor are actually really awesome. So if you want a mentor, think about how they're going to benefit from that.
Yeah, that's a great way to lead with the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're basically giving them the opportunity to
learn from you, learn
together.
Right. And so there's a back and forth learning process that happens. And it just feels really good. I know after meeting with my mentees, I walk out like, man, I'm really excited about this next generation that's going to be kicking some butt out there. Or, wow, my mentee just shared, she's going to, one of her friends applied for a fellowship to go to Antarctica. Who in the heck thinks of these things? This was not on my radar when I was 22.
No, these guys are running circles around the current workforce.
But that's just one form of allyship, is mentorship. And if you want a good read on that, two of my male allies wrote a book, Athena Rising, How and Why Men Should Mentor Women. It's a play-by-play for male allies out there who want to mentor women. But the sponsorship piece is really key. So a sponsor advocates for you most often when you're not in the room, which I think is super, super important for women because we're not in the room when decisions are made traditionally, just by virtue of position, like it or not. And so if you can plant the seed with your ally and say, hey, here's something I want to do with my next move in my career. Here's what my pivot point looks like, and here's where I'm going. Can you speak up for me when those opportunities come to bear in that meeting? Or, hey, I want to be on this kind of project team, or I want to develop this kind of skill. Plant the seed with your sponsor and make sure that they're there to drop that knowledge when it's applicable. Right. And then just having a champion, just having somebody that's rooting for you, that's supporting you, that's being your ally in a public way or even a private way. And so I think a lot of that is just describing those boundaries early on in the relationship. Hey, I see you as playing this role in my career. Here's how you can help me. I'd really like for us to meet, once a month or whatever it is, the frequency, to talk about these key things. And when women are intentional, the research shows when we have a plan and we're intentional, we win.
Yeah. Well, I love that idea. And I think that there's this idea of ownership. Right. Mm-hmm. So and it kind of plays into confidence and clarity and some of the key things that really, if you're early in your career or you're transitioning into a better opportunity or an area that really lights you up, you have to have ownership of that process. And I think that's where there's a huge opportunity for women really at any stage of your career to take that ownership. But that requires a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of just ability to work through discomfort. Say. Okay, right? Because like you said, having these conversations, because these may be people that you either work for or that you work in relationship to. These aren't necessarily your buddies or who you're socializing with. These are people that are very strategic, and that can be really intimidating. So, I'm all about helping people show up in their most confident, included way in any room. What are some techniques, some confidence building techniques that you and your clients have had success employing as they engage in these conversations?
Oh, that's a good question. You're right. I don't think this relationship feels comfortable, or we would have been having these types of relationships. And the Me Too movement has not helped actually, it shows that men are withdrawing these relationships with women, in fact.
Really?
And so this is more important now than ever that women choose to engage men and establish those boundaries early on. And it does require a bit of a confidence, in your ask.
Yeah.
Just outright in your ask. And so I think when you step into that relationship and you choose to be intentional with an ally that can serve you well in your career, I think being really cognizant of how specifically it's going to impact you. So the research shows when we share with our ally, this is how you've had a positive impact on me. This is what I've done as a result of our conversation, that increases not only their confidence in the relationship, but also them wanting to do that with more women, with more people. Okay. So I try to be very intentional about that with any of my mentors. Hey, because we had that talk,
right.
I did this as a result. Thank you. And just ping them every once in a while.
Right.
I try not to waste their time, but I
right.
loop back to, here's how you've had a positive impact to me, which I think as the asker, as the potential mentee or ally benefitter, knowing that you're able to recognize them and give them back that confidence boost helps boost your own confidence.
Yeah.
Especially as women, it's kind of a mental trick. We are so good at advocating for other people.
Yes, of course. Cheerleaders, right?
Ourselves.
Yeah.
The research shows that women are better negotiators when they're advocating for
somebody else. Yeah.
But for ourselves, not so much. And so I think some of that's just a little bit of a mind game. When I go into something where my confidence is kind of murky or I'm not wanting to ask or something just kind of mentally holding me back, I channel someone else. Or
interesting. So you kind of role play as if you're advocating for this other person, Julie.
Yeah.
As opposed to
yourself.
yourself.
Not even me, it's my daughter. Because the work I do, I believe benefits
so
the world she'll be a part of. And she is a part of the world 20 years from now when she's in the professional world.
Right.
I really hope it looks different for her. And so if I'm going to make an ask and I feel confident about the tools I'm giving, it's giving to her. So whatever it is that you can kind of mentally coach yourself through, or even asking, somebody that's an advocate or ally for you, your best friend, your parents, whoever it is, what would they say? Right? What would they say about me? Because that thing I'm telling myself, they probably wouldn't be okay with that. So why am I okay with that?
Yeah, no, exactly. I love that. I love that confidence building, gathering positive evidence. Like that's something I talk a lot about, is building your positive evidence file and asking people very targeted and structured feedback around specific attributes or key areas of influence that you have, and using that to build and to validate, right? It's not you seeking, tell me I'm amazing. It's like, give me a specific piece of evidence that says I'm good at navigating negotiations, or that I'm great at presenting, or that let your professional and your personal network, because they all inform how you see yourself. And that informs your level of confidence as you're engaging in these sometimes difficult or uncomfortable conversations to have to build your ally network.
Oh yeah. No, that you're absolutely right. Having those tangible evidence of what I am good at.
Yeah.
Backed up and co-created.
Yeah, I love that term, co-create. So let's talk about, you mentioned, I want to circle back a minute because this is really timely and topical, right? So you said that the Me Too movement is actually not encouraging men to engage in these professional mentee or ally relationships, is actually having them withdraw. And I have seen evidence of what you're saying in some of my own relationships and the work that I'm doing with clients, is that men, because of the fear factor of how it could be perceived incorrectly or misconstrued or have them targeted, are actually saying, I'm just not even going to play in that space, right? I would love to advocate for you, but I feel like people might read that or decode that incorrectly. So let's talk a minute about some safeguards around that, right? Because it is the current climate that we're in. It's the work environment that we're dealing with right now, is this tension between men and women and perception. How important is the role of structuring this relationship to help overcome or provide maybe some security or safety around that fear of engagement? Yeah.
It goes back to boundaries and having some structure around it. So co-creation, some rules around what does this relationship look like. One of the most tangible examples I heard about this that scares men a lot right now is after work settings. So a social setting, usually
which is where we all, business gets done. If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're new in your career and you haven't really engaged in some of those after hours networking type events, let me just tell you, reality is that is where relationships are formed. That is where progress is made in your career path. And that is where business actually gets done. Not engaging out of fear or not engaging out of discomfort is not an option.
We're not even being invited.
Right.
I mean, what we're starting to see now is men withdrawing, and so it's actually creating that bro culture more. It's reinforcing something we don't want.
Right.
And so I think as women, being very mindful about the role you play, like, hey, if you're going out to talk about that project, I'm the client liaison or whatever role I serve, I need to be there. Right. You guys need to give me a heads up on that. Make sure that I'm invited.
Right.
You know, and if your situation permits that, you know, maybe that's not a good time for you, negotiate back and forth with, okay, if you're talking about it there, I'd love to debrief in the morning.
Right.
You know, if I'm not able to make it or it doesn't make sense. But I think for men, if there is a bit of a fear factor here around, oh gosh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to do something that's going to be perceived as harassment? I think finding a safe relationship with somebody that will call you out on that behavior. You know, if you really are fearful that you might say or do something wrong,
right. That's another conversation.
You know, I mean, obviously there's some education that needs to be done in this country because there's some bad stuff going on. But what I would say, and if you're really genuinely scared about that, have somebody you trust that can call you out on it. Okay? And so one of my, a famous male ally, you know, person I watch that talks about this so well is Adam Grant. And what he says is, he says, you know, if he notices a man say something that's inappropriate, he just says, hey, when you said that, what did you mean exactly? You know, that's a safe public call out. Now, if it's pretty dangerous or, you know, ego might be an issue, private conversation more appropriate.
Right, absolutely. You have to look at the context of what's happening around you.
Right, but if you have a good enough relationship with somebody, just pull them aside and be like, hey, did you realize when you said this, did you see how everyone else perceived that? I'm worried about your reputation as a result of this.
Right.
Like, you might want to consider different ways to interact with the group because it could be perceived this way. And so I think for allies or men that want to be more of allies but maybe don't know how, find somebody that can give you good feedback, that you trust, that cares about you, that wants you to be better, and just find that safe place so that you can get some coaching on it. Right? Because I do think this is an issue. I mean, obviously there's so many stories. I mean, so many of the women I sit down with, almost all of them have a personal story about a time when something was said or done.
Right.
And this is a great opportunity for us to share a story, but I would really hate for it to withdraw our allies out there. This is a great time, more now than ever, that we need to engage them. Most men are good. Most men want to help us.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, and there's a perfect example of that. So I have a friend that is doing an amazing job building her career, and she is probably one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in an industry that is very male dominated. And so she's one of the rare kind of female presence, and she has an amazing working relationship with one of the partners in the business, and he does find ways to advocate for her, but he also gets challenged by other people on the perception of that, right? And their relationship could not be more clearly defined, and he knows what positions and projects he needs to advocate for her on, and he does it willingly because she is highly competent and highly professional, and she engages in that relationship only from a professional standpoint of how can we help build the best outcome for both of us. So the intentions on both sides are good.
But the perception
by other people who are not even engaged and the relationship has made it difficult for them to continue to navigate at the level of depth that they really would like to build this male ally relationship. And it's really unfortunate. It's to the detriment of the company. It's to the detriment of both of their careers, unfortunately. But he bravely continues despite, because they both feel so confident and solid in it, and their kind of emotional stakeholders that there might be concern with are 100% in support of it. So they carry on anyways towards building that ally and that relationship.
It's a great story.
But it's difficult to constantly feel like they have to defend it or have other people just jump to conclusions and have a perception that it's something that it totally isn't.
I love an unconscious bias test with this. It's just flip it. So if that were a young man, with those questions he asked. You know, and so I think educating people in the moment, like, why do you have this perception? What is that all about? Is it because it's a woman? Okay, let's talk about that. Why does a male and female relationship have to have some sort of perception of it being sexual or something more than a professional dynamic?
Right. And she has seen, because of the other partner's kind of discomfort in that space, less qualified, lower ranking, if you will, members of the organization get invited to networking events. They get invited to golf outings. They get invited to all of these other things because they're men, and those partners feel comfortable engaging with them. And with her, out of fear of perception, she doesn't get engaged. She doesn't get invited to those things. And it's so frustrating to walk through that as a friend to her and see, you know, knowing how amazingly qualified and knowing she is the person to be in that room is very, very frustrating. So what do you say to people that maybe are feeling like they're having a hard time getting those ally relationships because of that perception or that discomfort? What are some ways that they can maybe process through that, or maybe educate? Like, are there resources available to organizations? Like, I know you speak a ton to organizations trying to open this conversation and this awareness. What would you say maybe to her organization to help give them some tools?
That's exactly,
because it's not really her problem.
No, it's not her battle.
Right, exactly.
It's a cultural issue.
Exactly.
And so ideally, a company has to address that at the highest level of the organization. The C-suite has to be fully aligned on here are the behaviors we're going to mutually hold each other accountable for. And if equality is truly important, then we need to make sure that we're not doing anything that's preventing that from happening. And those are great examples of preventative behaviors that are leading to less chance of equality later.
Right.
And so really unpacking that and being willing to have a very vulnerable conversation, a very real conversation with genuine metrics to track that, guess what, are highly correlated to the metrics of the business and how the business performs.
Right.
But having full transparency and honest dialogue. No organization is getting this right. I mean, as much as Google is trying to do this, right? They still, right?
We've seen a couple companies get called out pretty heavily, and entire industries really get with very tangible evidence of how this is not happening in a productive way.
Well, when you embed it into the culture, here are the things that start to happen, right? When the woman's not being invited to the golf event, for example, a male ally will say something like, hey, why aren't there any women here? What happened in the meeting invite that it's just all people that look the same that are here? Right. And so you have to get to the deeper unconscious of people that affects our behavior so that people feel comfortable calling out those things in the moment. And guess what, women, when we do it, it's not really well perceived when we call out those things.
Right.
So our allies doing it, much more credibility, at least for now, that's where we got to meet people. We got to embed it in the highest levels of the organization. The fact that your friend has a senior leader alongside her is wonderful. What I think she might consider asking him for is say, hey, I'm not seeing that behavior from other men. Right. I would love for you to set the example of what good looks like and for other men to follow. And so here are the things you can do to influence the behavior of your peers.
Right.
That positive peer pressure works, especially from senior leaders.
Yeah. And there is that bit of competition, that little bit of ego of like, oh, I should be engaging in this too.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you can use that. And it's just kind of our natural, science tells us that we like people that remind us of ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So because of the disparity that you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation around the number of women in C-suite and the number of women founders and just kind of the overall mix of executive leadership, it's no surprise being so predominantly male that it is the male counterparts that maybe are getting these alliances and these sponsors and these other opportunities. So from a human behavior standpoint, of course, we want to default to what makes us more comfortable, right? But it's that challenge that I love that you're presenting, and you're not just saying, hey, this is wrong or we're failing. You're giving really tangible tips and tools to organizations and to the listeners and to the audience here of how they can really level up. So I love the fact that there are tools and that there are ways to engage with structure and with clarity, very specific asks. Clear metrics. I love that you have not only metrics for the ally relationship, but also tying those in to corporate metrics and KPIs and things that are going to really build a business case for inclusivity.
Right. And that's important that they're not seen as different things.
Right.
That
Exactly.
they're together in the same scorecard. That it's seamless, that if you do these things, the business will rise.
Yeah. And I would have never thought to so closely correlate those, even though I know the cause and effect, just to correlate those very visually and very specifically. Right? That hey, this is immediately impacting the rise of this KPI. So I think we definitely have our work cut out for us when it comes to getting this broader, encouraging message of male allies around, but it can be done.
Right. And Lisa, one thing I would offer for listeners out there, if you want some data to support this message, the best data out there is the McKinsey Women Matter report. Just came out in January, and what it shows, this is so compelling, so I don't know any leader that would dismiss this data. It's been proven year after year as they do this reporting. It's actually getting stronger, is when you have gender balance at the highest level of an organization, those organizations outperform their peers by a likelihood of 21%. So who doesn't
right.
want
Advocate for women make more money on the bottom line, right? Like, why is this not just the easiest thing to have happen ever?
So when you show that report to your male ally and have a specific ask, and I always say start the conversation with what's in it for men, what's in it for them.
Right.
Showing that report makes a really safe entry point for a really cool conversation.
Right, and it takes some of the emotionality out of it, right? It's not just saying, I'm being overlooked or this isn't fair to me, which never plays well.
Victim mode does not work.
Right, so this is building. I always encourage my clients that I coach, build your business case.
Yeah.
Bring data, bring research, show tangible benefit to the organization or to the person that you're selling yourself to. You know, take the emotionality out of it. Don't, because that's going to put people into shutdown mode, especially avoidant personalities or people who aren't maybe comfortable in a more vulnerable conversation. So you just keep it very business case specific and you tie it back, as Julie said, directly to the metrics or the bottom line, to the goals of the organization. And you show the strong, irrefutable evidence, you know, of why this is so important. So Julie, I know you coach, you speak, you educate organizations, you give them tools, you give them structure. Where can people connect with you to get you into their organizations and get this conversation going?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is on social media. Our handle for Facebook, for Instagram, and for Twitter is Next Pivot Point. So you can follow us there. We post daily, always posting exciting articles and information about how you can have this conversation and engage allies in your organization. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn, Julie Kratz. And then our website is www.nextpivotpoint.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will link all of that information up on show notes too. So you can just click on the details of this episode and get all the information. Book Julie. Hire her, bring her into your organization. This is too important to the bottom line, and it really is just the right thing to do if you're going to lead an organization with integrity and inclusivity. You have to be promoting male allies in your organization. There's no way around it. So, guys, connect with Julie. If you want more information from me, again, it's Lisa Mitchell. You can find me at powerbodylanguage.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always giving tips and tricks and little daily helpful lessons of how you can show up more confident and more clued in whatever room you walk into. That really is going to be the best medicine. Grow your confidence, gain these skills, engage in those important conversations. They're going to be total game changers for you guys. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, go be confident in whatever room you walk into.
Thanks, Lisa.